Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're actually tackling Eric Garcia because surprisingly, he's been one of our best performers this season, both in and out of possession. So we thought we would bring you his profile, just some stats, some tactics, and see what has changed and what his actual impact on Barcelona.
If somebody had said, like in 2022, that Ronald Araujo will be sitting in the bench and Eric Garcia will be center back, I would have said
Hmm.
they will take a hike, but that's the reality today. Christensen and Araujo are the bench. Eric Garcia is the heart of the defense, and he's been our primary CB for the season. So we decided to
Yeah.
take a look into him and also compare what he brings to the table with some of the top CBs that we see in the game today. So this is Garcia, obviously 24 years of age. He started at La Masia when he was about 7 years old, and he used to play for a team called the Dani Alves. That was the name of his
Mhm.
team. And he has gone on record on interviews saying that the three defenders that he idolizes are Puyol, Mascherano, and Piqué. And those are his three
Role models.
role models, for the lack of a better word. Garcia obviously is now known as a thinking man's footballer. Everybody talks about his tactical knowledge, tactical acumen, and his ability to obviously play with the ball, which is
Mm.
why he's at the heart of that defense, because for Flick's system to work, he needs more of a ball playing defender than a physical CB who can impose himself. Garcia already won a couple of La Ligas, won about three Premier Leagues with Man City, growing trophy cabinet, has won the Olympics. Will be possibly looking at the World Cup coming up, because I think Spain will be favorites going into this World Cup that's coming.
I think the career has been absolutely stellar so far. He's played for the Premier League champions, for La Liga champions. And he's done well internationally and playing, as you said, in a very promising, young, and powerful team. And it will be very exciting to look how he performs and what his role will be in the upcoming potential success.
Let's dive in. Now, this basically talks about at a percentile level how a player compares with similar players of his kind for a particular position. So in this particular case, we have compared Eric Garcia with central defenders, right?
Mm.
Or the offensive game that they bring. So imagine the top 80 or 100 central defenders in the world, CBs, across all top leagues. And if you take the contribution that they bring from the offensive standpoint and you put Eric Garcia in that mix, where does Eric Garcia rank? And you would be surprised, because this is better than Lewandowski if it was a striker. His numbers in terms of offensive contribution as a center back are insane. They're off the charts, like whether it be assists, whether it be GA, whether it be XG, whether it be progressive passing. He has that knack of scoring goals. And those who watch Barca regularly will know a lot of our Dadas have started because Eric went and scored a goal from somewhere. So
Mm.
he has that nose and that ability to score goals. And we often see that. If I didn't tell the name and said, this is the profile
Mm.
we of a player, you would think that this was a striker.
This is exactly what I think Eric Garcia does that not many other center backs do. It's the goals, right? It's being in the box. These are the last two goals that he scored. And to me, the interesting part is, how does Eric Garcia always find himself in those positions? He's not meant to be there because he's not big and strong. So he's not someone that you're going to aim for with crosses, obviously. But he always finds his way into the box. And somehow, for some reason, he is at the right place at the right time, and he scores these goals. They're not the prettiest goals. They usually scrambles inside the area. He somehow gets to the ball, but he is there. He is there, and he does score those goals. Again, you would expect center backs to score headers because they're big and strong, but no, that's not Eric. He's there. He's somehow wiggling through the cracks, and he scores. It's very impressive.
It's one of those things that Barca are lucky to have, and it's one of those things that sets him apart. Now let's go a little bit further.
Yeah.
This is actually his defensive side of the game, and here you can start looking into some of the more interesting pieces of data, right? So if you look into tackles and interceptions, not the best at the 76th percentile, right? In the but tackles in the attacking third, which means
Mm.
the opposite box, like the
Yeah.
he is
A good
at the
presser.
95% percentile. If it's tackle in the middle third, he's 96. So he's obviously a player who plays the defensive game through anticipation. He's not
Yeah.
the physical CB who is waiting, who's reacting. He reads the game, he runs the game, he tries to play from that perspective. But you can see errors, tackles, tackles plus interception, dribbles challenged, dribbles tackled. Here,
Mm.
Eric Garcia isn't the best. And we've talked about it. Like, this is no shame on him. Every player is what they are. But if you get really pro teams or teams who have those kind of players, we will struggle at times.
Obviously a very high number in the top five or the bottom 5%, however you want to call it. But I think the players of his ilk, the players who have so much responsibility in possession, because I'm guessing these are in possession errors, right? So I would say that it's not uncommon, right? Because when you have so much volume of touches, volume of passes, volume of chance creation, even, you're bound to make a lot of mistakes, more mistakes than most center backs, because you just the volume that you have is just so much bigger than most of center backs out there. Even these tackles, they're not bad numbers. Like in the 86 or 7 percentile, that's good. Flick wants that. He wants his team to push up, squeeze the opposition. So I think overall, a nice graph. The errors might be a bit of a concern, but overall, I think this is a positive picture of Eric Garcia.
Let's go keep going. And this is where Eric Garcia is actually
Oh,
phenomenal.
yes.
His possession and playing. And you can see those numbers. When it comes to possession and the possession game and a circulation of ball and the Barca way of playing or whatever, that's where Eric Garcia absolutely shines. And it's a
Yes.
testament to the modern game of football, Dom, that today it is not necessary for the center back to have elite defensive skills if he or
Mhm.
she is very good in this part of the game and can control how the game is played.
Yeah, exactly. It depends on the system around him. In Flick's system, this is absolutely essential. We know Eric is absolutely amazing on the ball, but one of the things that I love about him being amazing on the ball is the quickness of his thoughts, right? How his mind works. You talked about this, Dev, earlier when you said he's a thinking player. This is the moment Eric against PSG receives the pass from Ferran Torres. It's a very kind of a sloppy pass. It puts him in a weird situation because he's immediately getting pressed. So he has to think quickly, where do I put the ball next? Now, the pass itself is not sensational. This is not something that pro players cannot do. They can. But it's the quickness and decision making that is important here because he knows who his target is and he executes flawlessly and quickly. And Flick needs that in these situations when you're highly pressed against a very intense athletic team. You need players who can shuffle the ball very quickly and who can think and know what the next action is going to be.
Absolutely. So that was the good side of Eric, and we talked about the good
Mhm.
side. And this is where we I have taken the stats where he was lowest in his percentile in
Yeah.
both defense and possession. And you can look into where the challenges are. Obviously, he does better at interceptions, but that's just 46 percentile, right? That's not the greatest, but then look at clearances, then look at shots blocked. Let's look at challenges lost and so on. Now, this is not a criticism in any way. It is just that this is not the part of the game where Eric focuses on. He
Mhm.
focuses on the other part of the game. And that part is what makes him so endearing to Flick, because in Flick's system, that matters so much.
Yeah.
And very useful defender from that perspective. But if the system changes and then you play in a different kind of way, then there are situations where he can struggle.
I think all these stats are the result of flex system because let's see at the clearances. Barca don't clear the ball that often. They would like to play out of a press rather than clear the ball. So Derek doesn't have the volume of clearances. Now miscontrols obviously low. That's a good thing. He doesn't have. He's very comfortable with the ball at his feet. Now touches in the defensive penalty area and defensive third are low because of Flick's high line. Our center backs don't touch the ball very deep very often because they are almost always higher up, and we do dominate possession and territory, which means we push all the whole team forward. And Eric, for that reason, has more touches higher up than lower. Again, not a bad thing, just the way the Barca play at the moment. Okay, so what we'll see now is actually Eric's interceptions and defensive actions, which have surprised me lately. So if I play this video, this is Eric against PSG. And look at these tackles and sliding tackles and his interceptions against some of the paciest, more athletic players that we know PSG have, for example. And this is what surprised me. Eric is not that kind of a player, right? Eric is not someone who is known for being physical or athletic enough to go toe-to-toe with these players, but he's been doing that almost all season long, I would say. He's been doing things that you would not maybe expect from him in a good way. Defensively, he's been very solid. He's been in the right place at the right time, and he's been managing the defensive workload very well.
What is evident from that small little clip is that he has the temperament, he has the reading of the game to be able to do that, even against big physical players. So over time, as he builds himself and he hones his craft both on the interception, tackle, defensive side of the game, and polishes his possession, he can only go better from here. This is basically a combination of his good and his bad, right? You can see it very clearly from a strength profile perspective what he's outstanding at. I looked into some of his game stats as well from Wisecout, and you can see he is aerial duels are a problem because of his height. And then look at the defensive duels he loses in his own third. There are examples where he does do very well from an interception point of view, but there is a handy amount of duels that get lost. It also happens because of the high line. So let's just contextualize everything. But these are challenges that Eric has.
Absolutely. No player is without fault, and this is obviously the physical aspect can be a bit of a problem, especially losing duels in the penalty area. He seems to be doing well out wide, where the kind of the outline is a help to him as an additional defender. He doesn't have to worry about that side of the pitch. But then when he gets into the box where he can be attacked from multiple angles, multiple sides, he can be a bit of a struggle for him to actually do that. And obviously, aerially, that we know that. But according to the data, he's not that bad overall when compared to other players. But inside the area, inside the box, he can be a target.
So now let's do one thing. Let's compare Eric with some of the best center backs out there in the world. Right? The blue line will represent Eric, and then every other player that we compare will have a separate color. In this particular case, we start with Bastoni because obviously, who can forget the game against Inter? But look at where Bastoni and Eric, they're weirdly similar in some things, right?
They are.
I would have thought Eric's carrying would be better compared, but Bastoni does run. He's got that De Jong-like thing. He can take the ball from the box and then run to the box. So he has that capability. But I definitely thought that Bastoni would have been at a much higher percentile when it came to defensive duels. Didn't see that. Seems like similar, right?
Yeah.
And I thought that Bastoni was better aerially than Eric. But obviously, this season.
That's exactly what I've talked about. Aerially, statistically, Eric is not bad, right? He wins quite a few, and those usually happen similar to Araujo's case when Barca need to intercept the ball that's trying to go over the top, and he's in the back line, in a high line and back line, and then he tries to head the ball out. That's what he's good at as well, even though he doesn't have the height. But then in the box, obvious target, and that's where he struggles. In the crowd, where he has to out-muscle and out-jump someone, that's when you would see these flaws, so to speak, in his physicality, stature, and just the power that he can actually produce in those moments. So yes, it is something of a surprise. But then again, always with these defensive numbers, the system manipulates the data a lot. So that's why he has so much. The carrying is different, the passes are different. It's just the way the Barca play as well.
Let's go to the next player. And here we have, again, Eric, as you can see in the blue. And then on the other side, you will have Josko Guardiola. Obviously, he's from Man City. Now, the one thing that hit for me from Guardiola was that defensive duel. Look at that guy really gets into it, gets stuck in, right? And that's where he significantly is different from Eric Garcia, because you can see the forward passing and the progression and the possession side of the game, that's not there. Guardiola is a typical, he is the quintessential CB. You can see that in the data, but very contrasting profiles from that perspective. I'll keep going. And now we come to Schlotterberg, and I wanted your point of view on Schlotterberg, because we have often thought about what it would be to have Schlotterberg in our defense, but such a well-rounded defensive profile from Schlotterberg, don't you feel?
Yeah, absolutely. Schlotterberg, I think on this day, both Schlotterberg and Bastoni have this shout of being the best center back on the planet. Now, Schlotterberg, to me, it's the same thing we talk about when we talk about Araujo, is he has that brain fart moment every once in a while. And to me, that was the only thing that kept him from being in the conversation for that best center back for a while. Because if you want to stay at that position, you have to be consistent. And Schlotterberg always had these moments where he just, I don't know, something happens to him. But overall, a fantastic player.
I love this chart when I was doing it and I looked at the data. I was like, wow, this is so well-rounded for a center back. And it would be so incredible if Barca had a player like that within the system that we do. But anyway.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, let's keep going, yeah.
And then finally, I went and looked into Hincapie, because we have been talking about Hincapie a lot, especially since his movement into Arsenal and playing in our system. But again, if you look into what I liked about Hincapie, again, was his roundedness. You can see there's a little bit of everything in him for how Mikel Arteta plays. For Eric, there are peaks and troughs, and it's visible. You can see the blue lines, but if you see the purple, this again is this beautiful. It's like a not a clear hexagon, but a pentagon,
Mm.
where the aerial part is where he's not that good at. But look at carrying, look at passes, look at progression, one defensive duels. He's there. He's stuck
Yeah.
in. He's covering all sides of the game. So that was pretty interesting to watch when comparing the two profiles.
Yeah, he's the one that got away because I think he would have been a shrewd signing, like someone who's young, who has the potential, who has lots to go, someone who might have been available. You never know. Have they have the funds? But it's always the same thing with Barca, right? We were late for so many players in the last couple of years just because of our financial situation.
That was a brief and quick look into Eric Garcia, but we love doing this because we looked at the data and we could. I love playing with the visualization this time around, so it was nice. It was fun. Hopefully, you guys had fun at it as well. We'll start adding more video clips as we go along to contextualize some of this data, and hopefully you will enjoy that. But for now and for today's episode, that was a short look into Eric Garcia, why his season is going so well, what makes take, and where does he rank as you think about the world of center backs and how the game is progressing and how the game is evolving. So hopefully you enjoy that, and next week we'll bring another player. Till then, stay safe, take care, and Visca Barca.
Visca Barca.